Here with Michael Carbiner, the Assistant General Manager at Bandon Dunes Golf Resort. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending some time. I know your job has to be a busy one with so much going on here.
It's busy, but it's also a labor of love.
How long have you been here?
Off and on for a period of 12 years. I started my career here in 1999 when it was one golf course and 21 guest rooms. And now here we are several years later with 4 golf courses and at close to 400 beds and everything in between.
So how do you feel about the expansion, the growth in a little over a decade? I mean, it has to be, you said it's a labor of love, it has to be amazing to know where this stands and where it ranks as a resort in the golf world. It must make you awfully proud.
Extremely. You know, and I think anyone who's associated with the resort, with Kemper Sports and with Mr. Kaiser, it's a opportunity to come to a place like this every day and make a living is something we cherish. And it's not something a lot of people get to do. It's something we don't take for granted. And it is something we're very proud of.
Well, I have to say, as somebody coming and participating in the other side, those of us who stay here, we can feel all that from all of you, from everybody who works here. It's really, the service is incredible. Let's just talk for a second from the standpoint of kind of the food and beverage and the restaurants, and tell us a little bit about, you have a number of different courses. Each one has we're at the inn now, right next to Bandon Dunes. There's restaurants in different spots. How does it all work? How does it all fit together in terms of where you stay and where you eat?
Well, first and foremost, we never lose track of the golf experience. We know why we're here. We know why people come here. So our experiences are catered around the golf experience. So for example, in our main restaurant in the gallery, in the lodge, we have the first tee buffet. It is designed for people to be able to come through in an expedient fashion, get breakfast and get to the first tee, and have foods that are geared towards getting you around golf, you know, for 18 holes. Fresh berries, fruit, locally sourced products, everything in between. Our granola is outstanding. My favorite, so I have to put a little plug in there for that. And then lunch, we have to understand that many of our guests are playing 36 holes. So, you know, our job is to fill them up during the break and get them back out to the first tee. And I think we do a great job of that with very high quality food. We are blessed to be in a region, the Pacific Northwest, that has so many natural features, from fresh seafood. I mean, look, you don't have to go more than about 200 yards, and that's where some of your seafood comes from, to locally sourced produce. Berries, seasonal items, it's just really a treat. As a matter of fact, one of our restaurants, Pacific Grill, that is our theme. We try to have everything in that restaurant come from a source of within a 100-mile radius of our resort. It's a challenge. I'll be very blunt with you because of our logistical nature of where we're at and the sheer amount of volume we're doing. But we try very hard to make that happen. And you know, so it all kind of mixes with that. And, you know, I can't go on without saying McKee's Pub.
I was going to ask you about the pub.
You know, I mean, it goes right down to how the game was started. You know, where you had a golf course that was the anchor of a community, might be the, quote, public park per se in Scotland and Ireland, and there was a pub. And so we have one, and it's McKee's, and it's a rollicking good time. Everything from scotch to beer to our signature items such as meatloaf, chicken and dumplings. The lamb shank stew is one of my favorites. But it's hearty comfort food.
Right.
And I think we do a very good job at it. I'm very proud of our team.
Well, I was reading about the creation of the resort, and one of the things that interested me, I'm from the East Coast. I grew up with meatloaf. Meatloaf was a staple during the winter in the Northeast, but one of the signature dishes, Grandma Thayer's meatloaf, was part of the reason that the chef at the time got the job. Apparently the meatloaf was what sold everybody on him. So I love the idea that you build everything around the golf and then everything falls to the food and drink part of it. The camaraderie out on the golf course carries through to the pub and all the other areas too. The local nature of it, you said it's a challenge. It kind of goes in keeping with everything else, though. You're willing to do that because it's a special thing that the guests can look forward to.
Absolutely. When I say it's a challenge, too, it's anything you do is a challenge, whether it's putting a person on the moon or whether it's having locally sourced products. And
I don't know if I've ever heard the connection between putting people on the moon and getting blueberries. And making sure they get
but you kind of piece the jigsaw puzzle together, and the gentleman who says, well, I only come to that area on Wednesday. And we say, well, that's great, but would you consider maybe Monday and Friday, and perhaps we can give you a room during your stay. You just have to get creative in what you do.
The challenge part extends to just in thinking about it, keeping the variety enough. We were talking earlier that if you come, the nature of being at Bandon Dunes is you are somewhat isolated in terms of being out here. So if you come for 4 or 5 days, 6 days, there's 4 great golf courses, more on the way. The challenge of keeping variety for the people who literally come for 5 or 6 days and tend to go back to the same restaurant, for example. How do you deal with that to keep things revolving?
Well, I think it goes back to your original question, about having multiple outlets. We definitely have a different feel, environment-wise, depending on which restaurant you're in. The Gallery restaurant is very different from the Keys Pub, which is very different from Pacific Grill, which is very different from Bandon Trails. Our executive chef, Don McCraddock, has done a very nice job trying to tailor specific menus that fit those environments. But then more importantly, I think it comes down to specials. When it comes to the culinary end, featuring 3 to 5, somewhere in that range, fresh specials, whether it's a seafood special, some type of protein, steak, entree, whatever it might be, but really mixing that up. But more importantly, being able to recognize that guest who is with us for multiple days, building a relationship with them, and by the 3rd day you're saying, "Hi, Mr. Brown, how are you? What would you like tonight?" And that's not uncommon here.
Right. Well,
we enjoy that.
You get that everywhere. I mean, that's one of the things that really strikes me is we've been here a couple of days and already people are starting to tend to see the same people, and that is great. Well, we have loved and continue to love being here, and I don't think there is a finer example of really catering to a guest than what you all do here at Bandon Dunes.
Thank you.
Lastly, and certainly not leastly, I happen to be a wine lover. And I know that this part of the country, the Pacific Northwest, has some of the great wines in the world now. So you talked about the food aspect of it. Just give me a little rundown on the wine and how wonderful it is and what kinds you have and how many bottles.
I will. First off, I'd like to say, it's when you talk from an operational point of view, it's not just food, it's not just beverage, it's food and beverage. It's the entire complement. So not only would I like to talk about wine, but I'd also like to talk about beer. Because if you like beer, in my humble opinion, there's no better place than the Pacific Northwest. The quality and craftsmanship of the beers that are coming through this area right now are just amazing. Seasonals, local craft breweries, it's just really good stuff. However, I will go back to your original question and we'll go straight to wine. In the mid-'70s, the explosion of the wine industry in the California area obviously became world-renowned. Shortly thereafter, it started to filter into the Pacific Northwest. And what you have now is, in my opinion, again, and it's just my opinion, is one of the best Pinot Noir regions, definitely in the world, as well as really producing other fine quality red and white wines. We've partnered with some local wineries. Again, we value the attraction of a regional component of what we offer because we think that's a big part of being in Oregon, is experiencing everything Oregon has to offer. So you'll find, I'd say, somewhere between 30 to 40%, it's just me talking off the top of my head, I would say are local Oregon wines. If you expand that into the Washington area, you're probably up closer to 50%. We do not have a heavy emphasis on European wines. Most of our stock that we carry is domestic and from the West, and then again concentrated in the Pacific Northwest. We feature a deep option variety by the glass. We believe in that program, and we try to rotate that just like we do food specials. And then our master sommelier, Phil Sable, has been key to getting us the Wine Spectator Award of Distinction for the last 3 years, something we're very proud of. And we have everything from, I would consider, more value wines to the Lamborghini wines and everything in between. So we do a really nice job of matching people's tastes.
Well, it makes sense that given the nature of, you use the word experiencing Oregon and the Pacific Northwest, it's an overused word sometimes, but in the case of Bandon Dunes, it is not, to me, the experience of all of it together. The golf first and then everything that follows it. So
when you talk about playing 18, 36, perhaps even 54, sitting down in front of the outdoor fireplace at McKee's, you have a nice Oregon Pinot that you're swirling around and you're rehashing the stories of the day. It gets to a point where it just doesn't get better than that. If you're with good company, enjoying those experiences, I mean, that's life, and it's pretty neat.
Well, we did the 18, so maybe now's time to head over to McKee's and
That sounds like a
experience
plan.
some of that. Thanks for being with us.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Appreciate the opportunity.